Hey, what's up everyone? Tedjoke85 here, and today I'm going to be talking about episode 6 of book 4 of Legend of Korra, titled The Battle of Zaofu. And wow, was this a good episode. To begin with, Sue ends up going off, as we saw at the end of the last episode. Korra is trying to get a hold of her, with her telling her that she's already ran off with the twin boys that she has. So, the beginning of the episode shows her and the twins trying to launch a sneak attack on Kuvira. Sue thinks that she found Kuvira using the seismic waves and that she uses from her earthbending abilities. Here, only to find out that it ended up being a decoy and that Kuvira was expecting them to do a sneak attack. Which, obviously, this leads to Sue and her boys being captured and that, so. But in the meanwhile, Korra, you can tell where Korra is trying to do the right thing and that, trying to find peace in that. And despite what Sue and everybody else is telling her, she really wanted a peaceful resolution. Which she even managed to have Opal disagree with her, because even Opal says that she should take Kuvira down by force. Which Denora had to remind Opal of the airbending oath to not be aggressive with the airbending abilities. Which, going back to Korra, this reminds me a lot of Book 3 of the original series, where Aang was contemplating whether or not to kill Fire Lord Ozai or not. And he was really trying to come up with a peaceful solution to the problem before Sozin's comet hit, and we see Korra pretty much undergoing the same dilemma, in that she does want peace, and you can tell that she really wants to use force as a last resort. And despite what Opal says, and with her pleading for her to rescue Sue, Korra ends up taking Opal and Janora with her to Kuvira to try to negotiate peacefully with Kuvira, and Kuvira reiterated her criteria for the truce and that, which ultimately ended up not going through, and that's when Korra decided that the situation wasn't going to be handled or solved diplomatically, that she had to fight Kuvira. And I do have to admit, this fight for the most part was awesome. And we got to see how good of a earthbender and metalbender Kuvira is. And at the same time, we got to see Kuvira. Korra being a lot better than what she was whenever she was rehabilitating. Which, you can tell she took a lot more hits. She managed to stay up as much as she could. And, speaking of her trying to handle things peacefully, she really refrained from going into the Avatar state. Which, after a while, Kuvira really started to get the upper hand in that, and that's when Sue finally told her to go in the Avatar state. Which Korra was reluctant at first, but knowing that Kuvira was going in for the finishing move, Korra ends up going into the Avatar state and ends up mopping the floor with Kuvira. I mean, she was totally using her airbending in that. She blew Kuvira away. Literally, I should say. but, but yeah, she really had the upper hand, and you could see Korra rising up in this airbending tornado and with this huge boulder over her head, ready to finish off Kuvira. And as she's looking down at Kuvira, she all of a sudden sees her head on Kuvira when she was in the Avatar state, thus throwing Korra out of whack, allowing Kuvira to finish off the fight and ultimately defeat Korra. And this is really interesting because I know Janora was saying that they thought all the poison and that was taken out of her, which has me thinking, yes, we did get to see Korra take the metal out of her, but the question now is there still a little bit residual mercury left in her, or is it just purely psychological now? Because even Toph congratulated Korra for getting the liquid mercury out, so I highly doubt that she still has some residue left in her body from the poison. So I'm thinking all that Korra has left to do is to get over her mental block of her being in the Avatar state and fulfilling her duties as the Avatar. And goes back to what Toph was saying before, what was done in the past battles is over, with Amon and Unalak and Zahir and that, and you can tell where she's still conflicted in that. I'm not sure that has to do with her past battles, or if she's conflicted about how she should handle this whole Kavira situation, whether she should use force or not. So, but yeah, when Korra got into trouble and got captured by Kuvira, that's when Opal and Janora finally stepped in and blew a Kuvira to the side, and upon doing this, Kuvira unleashed her army upon Opal and Janora as she sees it as a break of the truce. And knowing that they're under attack, Janora uses her spirit abilities to contact Milo and Iki to help them out and get her and Korra out, which, again, we get to see how good of a leader Janora can be. She's the voice of reason here, and she knows exactly what's going on, and you can tell she definitely knows when to need help, when she and everybody needs help. So, but yeah, Milo, Iki, and Pepper, who's the Sky Bison, comes in and gets Opal, Korra, and Janora out, and as soon as they leave, Kuvir ends up declaring Zaofu as part of the Earth Empire, much to the disappointment of Sue and her boys in it. But yeah, that's really much the main point of this episode, and then the sub story that's going on here is, of course, the spirit mine and what technology and that Varric is going to do with it. And you see him and Bolin together, along with Batar Jr., who's overseeing the construction of whatever weapon and that Varric is going to make with the spirit mine. And Batar Jr. demands that Varric show him everything that he's doing in that, which Varric does. He shows and explains what he's doing in that, but unbeknownst to Batar Jr., Varric actually has the whole train that they're on rigged so that it's ready to blow up in 5 minutes. Which not only does he have a timer, but he also has a detonator in his hands. Which Batar Jr. thinks that he's bluffing in that, because I do have to say, that is a cool thing about Varric in that. You never know what you're going to get from him from time in, time out. Yes, he is a bit of a shallow character, he is a little bit conceited in that, but you can tell where there's definitely true genius involved here. And this whole sub-story that was explored in this episode is a good example of that, because you really cannot tell whether or not he was bluffing or not. Which, come to find out, he wasn't actually bluffing, and that he actually did have the train ready to blow up. And it's interesting that he was also willing to have him get blown up alongside the train, but it's I shouldn't laugh at this, but it's also interesting how he was able to sacrifice Bolin with it, even though Bolin was like, no, I have so much to live for, Dad. And I thought that was a little bit of a comic relief, and you could see Bolin going around the machine and that, trying to see if there's any kind of off switch or any way he can reverse it and that, but yeah, luckily Bolin and Varric were able to get out of the train before it exploded, which Batar Jr. ended up seeing that it definitely was not a bluff in that. And here what ends up happening is, assuming that Varric and Bolin have been killed, we see him going to Kuvira and that, and telling her that he's pretty sure that they're dead, but at the same time he's positive he can duplicate whatever research that Varric put into the spirit mines. Which Kuvira ends up pointing Julie as Batar Jr.'s personal assistant, sees that this thing gets finished and that. So, but yeah, as we can see at the end of this episode, Zaofu is under Earth Empire control, and You also see at the end where Sue and her twin boys and that are in these metal contraptions and that, while the citizens are pretty much forced to pledge their allegiance to Gavir, which you can see Batur Senior and Huon not surrendering whatsoever, and they end up getting put in a prison and that for being a traitor to the Earth Empire. Which I gotta admit, I was really happy to see Yuan in this episode because we only got to see him like one time in for one episode in book 3 and that, where he shows off his banana-looking thing that he says that represented harmonic convergence and that, and here we see that he has slightly different hair. He has a green streak along his hair and that, and we also see that he's also overlooking Milo and Iki and that. He sees them drawing, and he seems to be pretty pleased with Iki and that, with how she draws and that, because he feels that she's expressing her innermost feelings and that, and he told her he could really tell what was going on with her and that just by looking at the painting and that. Well, he was much more critical of Milo, which Milo painted this self-portrait where it kind of looked Napoleon-esque and that, and Huon ends up critiquing him, saying, "Yeah, we know what we look like on the outside, but we're yearning to look at what was in the inside of you." And I think that's pretty cool because I liked Huon. You know, you can definitely tell he's an emo type character, but at the same time, though, I'm sure I speak for most of you that are watching this that we know at least a little something that gets a little emo from time to time, and it's certainly nice to see a character that is relatable, in which that is one of the things I gave props for the book 3 on, and I'm going to give props here, is that these characters are really becoming part of the Avatar universe, and you can really... I know I, for one, can really start getting attached to these characters, whether they're good or evil and that. And it's nice to see them actually developing in that into relatable characters in that, because I think that's an important part of this, of telling a story as grand as the Legend of Korra, is that if you don't have strong characters, then the story would pretty much be blah. So but yeah, this ended up being an interesting episode. Now it's gonna be interesting to see what happens to Korra and that, and how she's gonna be able to control uh herself being in the Avatar state, because, like I said before, I just think it's a mental block now, because uh, all the poison she extracted out of her body and that, it's just, you can tell where she's in a turmoil right now, and she's still feeling like she's fighting past battles and that, and with her being the Avatar and the responsibilities that go with it, you can tell she's stressing in that, and even during the fight with Kavir, you can tell where she was much better, but at the same time, though, there is that conflict of what she should do, and until that's resolved, I don't think it's gonna be anything that's gonna be solved. Like, I don't think there's any patchwork that can be done in order to fix that right away. So she's definitely gonna have some work to do, and here hopefully she can get some help somehow, whether Tenzin will be able to help her somehow, or even Janora. Who knows? Maybe she will go back to Republic City and that, and maybe she'll get to see like Mako and Asami and that. Maybe being around them again will bring her back to where she should be. And even Bolin and Varric, there's a good chance they might be seen again real soon and that. So but yeah, this really, as we're approaching the midway point of this book, you can definitely tell where the tension's really starting to build in that, and Kuvira's tyranny is completely gone out of control in that, and needless to say, the United Republic has to do something, because I'm sure they don't want the Earth Empire to get too big in that, and before you know it, who's gonna stop Kuvira from just uniting the Earth Empire? What's gonna stop her from invading like the Fire Nation, or the Air Temples and that, or even the Water Tribes? So I just think this is a threat that's going to continue unless something's done now, and hopefully Korra is able to get better in that and fulfill her duties of being the Avatar in that. So, But yeah, that's pretty much it I have to say about this episode. So thank you for listening to this, and I will see you again next week.